Hey everybody, hope and pray that you're doing well. Today as we come to our word from the word. And today that word is calf. Calf. Now I know probably what some of you are thinking, like, what in the world? How is that the word from the word today? Well, it's certainly one we haven't used before. And as you get to Judges 3, you may still be wondering. If you go ahead and read the whole chapter, I mean, you can pause this, read the whole chapter so you see what's going on. If nothing else, I always encourage you to read the whole chapter so you see everything anyway on your own time. We're going to look at one verse today, kind of right in the middle. So we see we've been talking about all that was coming with the judges, and so you see basically you already see Othniel, the first judge, and then it goes through the cycle of good and bad, right? Time where they get away from the Lord, God raises up a judge. The judge is effective, then they live in peace, or they live doing the things they ought to do. The judge dies, and they go through the cycle again. The people get away from the Lord, and you go find it again. So that's what we're going to find in the portion we're looking at today. And so you have the people have done the same thing. They've gone through this cycle, and they have this man named Eglon, who is over the Moabites. And he joins in with the Ammonites and the Amalekites, and they all come and take over the Palms, which is like where Jericho was. And so all this is going on, and then they rule over the Israelites. Israelites cry out to the Lord. And that's the part we're going to look at, and then we'll talk about this word calf before I tell you the rest of the story. So in verse 15, says, "But when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for them. Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. By him the children of Israel sent tribute to Eglon, king of Moab." Now, as you go on through, because I was looking at trying to find a passage here, but I want us to just look at the names here, because it's interesting as you do some research on this that, one, you have Ehud, I believe, is his name is talking about he's a left-handed Benjamite. Now, what difference does it make that he's left-handed? Well, the interesting thing is that Benjamin means son of my right hand. There's something in those names. Well, what does Eglon, the king of Moab, what does his name mean? Well, his name means calf. Now, that's where you say, so that's where we got the word from. Well, what happens as you read on through the story, you find out that Ehud, he decides that he's going to go, and he ends up hiding a sword. He straps it to his thigh and hides it. And it's this portion that we're talking about, him being left-handed. And most commentators will tell you that that's not like how we would think about it in just saying he was just left-handed, but it was probably something that he perhaps could not use his right hand for some reason, or that maybe it wasn't as useful for whatever reason. So it could be a play on the name itself. We find out throughout Judges that there's a lot of left-handed people with that saying. Anyway, it's something in a name. That's what we're talking about. Now, you find out that Eglon, when Ehud gets there with the sword, find out that Eglon, who, you remember, means calf, it basically says he's a very fat man. And so you say, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Well, you've heard of the fattened calf, right? That, they would take his calf, fill it up, and then that way it would be ready in a real calf, right, for it to be devoured at a feast. So they fatten it up before they're going to kill it and eat it. Now, today, I want us to kind of take that thought and understand that God has already gone before us. God has already provided a victory if we'll just trust in him, right? And that's kind of the thing, that he's already fattened the calf of the enemy, just setting them up for destruction. And so the king has no idea that Ehud would even do this. Now, Ehud goes and he's giving the tribute or the tax money or whatever that might be. And you notice as you go through the story, he goes and then he leaves. And it's almost as if he's coming back by as he's leaving. So maybe he I really think he kind of lost his edge. He lost his nerve to do what he was supposed to do. He comes back, and when he crosses by these false gods that are set up, he turns around and goes back. And I think, and here again, you read it and find out for yourself. I believe that he probably had a little bit that he backed out of what he was supposed to do, and when he saw the false gods, it triggered something in him that said, I've got to go back and do what God has called me to do. I'm going to be victorious because that is what God has called me to do for our people. And so he goes and he's one-on-one with the king, and then the king is surprised because he wouldn't be expecting him to pull out a sword, period, much less with his left hand. It's kind of this thing that he was really a sneak attack. He goes to stab him with the sword, and apparently it had no guard, no hilt on it at all. And like the guy's so fat that the sword goes completely through him, and you can't see it anymore. And then there's some other nice gross details that's in there as well. But then he goes and he locks the door, and he goes out the window. And so he's already out of town before anybody even realizes that there's a problem. Now, having said all of that with this word calf and talking about the fact that God has already fattened the calf of our enemy, too many times, even when we're face to face with the enemy, we turn and walk away. Even when God has already given us the courage maybe to go part of the way or even go all the way there, but we don't take that final step to do what he's called us to do. And remember, as he's killing him, this is in war. This is not like because God doesn't call him out. This is the judge that he raised up to accomplish what he wanted him to do. And as we look at that, God had called him, and he was almost disobedient. But when he saw, and I just imagine the disgust when he saw those false gods and idols, he said, I cannot let this stand. I have to say something. I have to do something. And see, that's what we need in our world today, in our churches today, all across this nation, all across this world, is Christians that will stand up just simply when we see those things and we say, okay, I've got to stop being silent and I've got to stand up and say something for my great God. And we have to understand that God has already delivered us from the enemy. That same enemy we seem to be so afraid of. So the next time you see a calf, or the next time you think about your enemy, think about the fact that God has already gone ahead of you. God has already prepared the enemy for destruction. And we have no one to fear but God. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.